Tanya, I would love for you to introduce yourself to people who are watching and listening to this podcast.
Sure. So I'm Tanya Samuel. I work in the creative industry. I guess I see myself as a creative entrepreneur, really, with the kind of work that I do. But primarily, I write and produce content, and very much focused on sort of like film and drama content is my primary area of work at the moment.
hmm And Tanya, how did you get into this area? What is it that inspired you to pursue this career path?
Well, I think I did law at university, but I think because I was always very much interested in the law, but I was equally interested in media.
hmm
So I think after my first lecture, I realized that I loved the law, but I would never want to do a job that I couldn't wear denim to. So that was always my mantra. If I can't wear denim, I can't dress down, then it's not really a job for me because as a creative, I like to express myself through my art, but also through my fashion, how I dress, and I see that as a quite a strong source of expression for me. So I think that was my sort of like my primary thing. And I come from a family that are all sort of like quite creative anyway. So I think it was just like a natural thing for me to end up in industry. Once I graduated, I applied for a job at the BBC and pitched them a load of ideas as well, which one of them they really liked. And I started working there. So that was in Manchester. It was the entertainment department. I worked there for a couple of years. And then I moved back to London, although I never really fully moved out of London, to be fair, because every week half the week I was in London anyway, because of the sort of like artists and things that I had to go and see, because it was a sort of infotainment show. So that's what I did. And once I left there, I got into a bit of celebrity booking and did that for a while. And then just started to kind of work on different projects with friends and producing content and filming things and writing. And then I set up a company called Blue Sky Arts and Media, and we did a lot of corporate videos and things, promotional things. And I did that for a long time. Through that, I set up a charity, and I also got into working in the kind of community and working on social impact stuff. So then I ended up working with the council, my local council, during the early noughties when the Labour government at the time had set up this program called New Deal for Communities. And my local community was awarded one of the grants for it, which was £50 million over sort of like a 10-year period. But it was primarily a calling card to generate more economy, good health, housing, and all these other elements that really helps create a vibrant and healthy community. So that's sort of what I did on the side. And after a few years, I was awarded an MBE for all of that work, which was great. And yeah, so I've always worked with the creative industry, in the creative industry, but always having sort of like a social impact element,
Mhm.
which is why I consider myself more of a kind of creative entrepreneur, because everything I do is based around sort of like, I guess, storytelling,
Mhm.
the advancements of technology, because it's always been a key thing in the creative industry, and social impact. So those are my sort of like, I think I would say that's kind of my area.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. Would you like to share a challenge or maybe challenges that you faced and how did you overcome these challenges, particularly being a woman in the creative industries, that because other people can learn from that?
Yeah. Well, I think primarily, if I kind of move back a little bit from the challenges, what I would say, especially now, is that at the moment there's a lot of conversation around technology and the advancements of technology and how it's impacting various different sectors, of which the creative industry is definitely one such area. and huge things, and people are having huge conversations about it now. Just this week, two things that were in the press that people are talking about was Elton John's residency in Vegas, which is going to be through AI, and also Netflix's new show, which is based on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, so the factory of Willy Wonka, and the voice of Gene Wilder. The family have allowed them to use that voice, an AI version of that voice, for the show. And so there's all these ethical conversations coming up. But what I would say first, and this is also part of a challenge of mine with the work I'm doing, is that I guess throughout, humanity, shall we say, every major technological shift has changed really how stories are told. Whether it be moving image first, the advent of cinema, sound, Technicolor, all of these things. And I see the advancements of technology and AI now as one such new explosion. It's a little bit different because with the advancements that humanity has made, things are kind of like, growing and running exponentially. It almost feels like, AI and all these developments are developing faster than, humanity can actually catch up with it. So that is, I think, the dilemma that people are kind of seeing now. And for me, I'm more about how we can shape technology to suit what we want, as opposed to technology shaping humanity. So it's like, who gets to shape the new technology? What are the stories that are coming out of them? Who is telling these stories? These are the things that, for me, are the most impactful and biggest challenges that I think that we're facing as a creative industry. So I see it as another tool. I think with all of that, the thing that I seek comfort in is, if you are really a true creative, it's a tool like any other tool. So it's an aid. You have to excuse me. I think that's somebody's phone. It's an aid that you use. And if you're confident in your skills as a creative, then there is no reason why new AI technology can't help facilitate what it is, the stories that you're trying to tell. Where it becomes a challenge is if people are utilizing it without your consent, or if you feel that, the way in which it's been utilized is going to have a negative impact on what it is you're trying to say. And that's conversations that are always ongoing. So for me, that's with that challenge, how I'm kind of overcoming it is through my work with an organization called Black AI Futures, of which I am the lead for Thriving. And within that, as an organization, what we're looking at is the ethical aspect of AI, how Black and global majorities are protected from any negative impact of it, because the Black and global majority always feels to be on the back foot when it comes to these things, but also ensuring that we have a seat at the table and we are influencing and having an impact on policy at the highest level, so that at every point when these new technologies are, released in the public domain, then there is always an element of ensuring that it does more good than harm. And that's the primary area for that. In my personal work, I think for me, the challenges are all about how you approach them, not necessarily specific things. It's more about the mindset, because I think, as I'm sure you would know it, right? Every job that you do always has an element of risk and hardship. And with that, I always adopt the mentality of not so much obstacles, but more like your journey. So even if something doesn't work out, my thing is failure is only failure when you stop.
Mm,
If you stop trying, then you failed.
mm,
But so long as you keep trying, and you keep persevering and you soldiering on, you're never failing. You're only learning and you're only growing. And my brother's a filmmaker, James Samuel, and he says something which I always remember, which is don't allow somebody else's limitations to put a ceiling on your
mm.
aspirations. Essentially, that, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it is. And that is to say that with all of these and with challenges, you do meet people and things that come up that, look at what it is you're trying to do, what you're trying to say, and almost presenting, telling you that you're wrong, or it's not going to work, or you're not good enough, or you don't have the capacity to achieve what it is you're trying to achieve. And what you have to do is block out those noises. If you feel passionate and strong about something, as long as you continue, you will always succeed. Because there's a lot of terrible things out there that you and I would go, how on earth is that out in the public domain? But it's out in the public domain because these people didn't give up. And so that is, I think, more what I would say around challenges, because as I said, every single day, I mean, to do this podcast today, I was stuck in unexpected traffic for about 40 minutes. So, and I headed out early, but still yet, it's all challenges. And there was a chance where I may not have made it on time, but I was like, okay, it's just one of those things. So we deal with things all the time. That I think that the biggest takeaway that I could give is just never give up. When you stop, that's when you fail. Even when you have doubt, you just have to keep going.
I love that. I absolutely love that. It's almost like until you're alive, there's opportunity. And I love what you said, that you either learn or you succeed. And
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Are there any current or future projects that you'd like to share?
Um, well, yeah. I mean, I'm doing something in a couple of months, which is going to be, so a friend of mine, another creative, and somebody as well who is using AI as an aid and as a tool, is creating a space where other creatives, in particular music, can sort of like do like live performances from her new shop in South London. So I'm directing that, and we're shooting that, and hopefully it's going to be an ongoing monthly event where we have like mainstream artists and newly established artists come in and doing performances. Something that I will actually invite you to when it happens. So that's kind of quite interesting. That's going to be called Chinakwe on the Row, and I'm really quite excited about that. I'm also producing my first feature, on my own feature, which I wrote, and I've got a team around. So that is underway now, which is great. So that's going to be interesting. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm still working with my brother on some other projects. So we've got some things coming up in the fall, which are quite interesting. Can't really talk too much about those, but, a couple of, drama projects that are coming up will be coming on stream. And yeah, just still developing things towards, creating that studio where, my content and other sort of like young up and coming creatives can kind of express themselves. So that's sort of like the things that I'm working on at the moment, which are quite exciting.
Yes, it is. It sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
What advice would you offer to people who want to pursue a path similar to yours?
Well, firstly, I think you always have to be prepared for the unexpected.
Mhm.
That's the first thing, because literally nothing is smooth sailing. Even when you're doing things and people think, oh my God, this is amazing. How have you managed to do this so quickly? Nothing's ever really quickly. It takes a long time. But I think the first thing is that you just got to have passion.
Mm.
First, you've got to be really, really passionate. And nothing that you absolutely have to be is a self-starter.
Mhm.
Because in this job, I've always been a person, I mean, before it was a thing, I used to just say job creation all the time. For me, it was always about creating my own job. it was the same thing about, well, I don't want to do anything I can't wear denim to. Then what can you do then, Tanya? Okay, well, you can be creative. Okay, so how does that look? So everything that you do, you have to be a self-starter. I think that's really the main thing, because what will happen is that ultimately, until you are, you kind of done something, or you are kind of endorsed by a bigger organization, you have to do everything, you pretty much do everything yourself. But also, I think, especially in this day and age, and with the advent of technology, interestingly enough, and the very things that a lot of people are still quite apprehensive about, are actually creating some real opportunities for creatives to be creative on their own terms, and not necessarily wait for somebody to commission them to give them money for something, not necessarily wait for them to be approved on what kind of stories they want to tell. They're able to do these things themselves. So I would say, do a lot of research about what's out there in terms of what tools are available, and just be a self-starter. And, I remember this film called The Field of Dreams, and I always remember a line in it saying, if you build it, they will come. The thing is, if you as a creative want to take on this path, then find something that you're passionate about, find an area or story you're passionate about, and build it and create it. And, it will either become a bit something for show reel, so it's a calling card, it'll be, or maybe something that resonates with lots of people, and you gain popularity because of the content you're putting out. And there are 100 stories about people that I know of who kind of started creating something that was quite small. They didn't think anything, just something that they were passionate about, and before you know it, they've become somebody who has something to say culturally, and almost a cultural spokesperson. So I think that the advice is that, really, be passionate and be a self-starter.
Mm-hmm. So as sort of I've been learning from your journey, which has been, as you said, very organic, and as you look towards the future, what's particularly the social impact that you've already made, what sort of legacy do you feel that you'd like to leave behind with the work you do?
I think the impact that I would like to leave is that if I create any content, it tells a story, and it teaches somebody an invaluable lesson, whether it be something about the environment that they live in, or something that's inspirational that will help them continue and go on. I just like to leave legacies where people can learn something from it. And I say that when I was doing the charity, primarily, more so, about a year ago now, I had a group of my ex-young people who reached out to me to just basically say, your project had a massive impact on me, and as a result, I'm now working in this field. I've got, young people who are now actors, young people who went and studied, psychology and art, and now they are, offering therapy through the creative, through drama, to help other people, through problems. So that for me was really inspiring. I was very pleased with that. So I think the legacy for me is just to leave content and things where that become tools for people, mm-hmm. that they can utilize and that they can look at, and they can be inspired. They can be inspired from.
That's wonderful. How can Tanya, people, if they wanted to reach out to you, how can they connect with you?
Well, I have to say from now, I am horrible at LinkedIn. I mean, absolutely horrible. I don't use it the way probably most people should, but you can contact me through LinkedIn. And you can also contact me on, one of my emails is tanyasamuelmbe@gmail.com. So people can contact me that way as well.
Great. Tanya, finally, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience watching and listening to you today?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say that, if people look at where we are now in society, we're at the beginning of the new sort of like technological revolution that we're experiencing now, I'd say that there are a lot of things to be mindful of course, but equally, there's an equal amount of things to be quite, hopeful with. And you just need to be bold and confident and say, okay, this is here. How am I going to make sure that this is not the tail wagging the dog and it's the dog wagging the tail? Humanity being the dog, you know, and just grab opportunities and new frontiers just by with both hands, and really, you know before you judge something, be very learned about it, understand it before you judge. People are very quick to be like, oh, I don't like that, or that's not going to work for me, or this thing is designed to do X. Well, yes, maybe, but take the time to learn about it, learn, so that when you do have that final opinion, it's an educated opinion, not one that you've got because you've heard something through social media or through somebody else. Make sure it's firsthand.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Tanya. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us today. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for joining us.
Lovely. Thanks, Sarah.